Good evening, everyone. Thanks for joining me for Adult Craft Night. Tonight we're going to be needle felting some mushrooms. I'm going to go over everything you have in your kit. So this is a pretty simple one. You're just going to have a piece of upholstery foam, one of these felting needles. These are very sharp, so please be careful with those. You should have a glass jar, and then you should have a few different colors of felt. So I'm including a cream color and a red for the mushrooms, and I'll throw in an extra color in case you want to do different mushrooms, and then a couple of green shades. So we're going to start by working on our mushrooms. So I've taken this out of the jar just so you can see what they look like. They're sitting on this little tuft of a couple of shades of green felt. So we're going to start by working on the mushroom caps, and then we'll do the stalks and the little dots on top, and then we'll attach it to this green felt. So starting with our red felt, we're going to make the mushroom cap. So you're going to make two, and if you want to do them both in red, you can. You can also use the different felt that's included in your kit. It's totally up to you. I've got red here, so I've just split it in half. Now, I did make the mushrooms different sizes, so if you split it in half evenly, you're going to end up with the same size mushrooms unless you remove some of the felt from one of the sides. So just keep that in mind when you're dividing up the felt, whether you want them in different sizes. So we're going to start by rolling up our felt. Just start on one end. And I'm just kind of tucking the ends in as I go. And at this point, I'm gonna be very careful when you're doing this, so I'm just kind of holding, trying to get the felt to stick together. And tucking in the ends, so we want kind of a ball shape. And just tucking in the ends. Again, very careful with this. Work slowly and keep your fingers out of the way. Okay, so we've got the beginning of our mushroom cap. And now we're going to work to tighten it. If you squeeze this, it's still pretty loose, and we want it to feel a little more solid. So I'm going to start by stabbing the top. Again, just very slowly. And the more you work at it, the more solid it'll feel. It'll start to get pretty compact. And when you're doing this, you don't have to go all the way through to the upholstery. And right now it's too big. The jar is pretty small, so I don't want the mushrooms to be too large, or I won't be able to get them through the opening. So I'm just stabbing around the side, making sure that I keep it a circle shape. Okay, so now we've got the cap of our mushroom. It does take a while, but just go slowly to make sure you don't get hurt. So we've got a little round top and a flat bottom. And I see a couple of stray pieces here. So after this, we're going to do the base with this cream color. So now we're going to work on the stem. So just take a little bit of the cream colored felt and we're going to roll it up. And I'm just going to poke this a few times so it stays in place. And how much felt you use will depend on how big your cap is. So with this, we're just going to keep working at it, rolling it around to get it into kind of a cylinder shape. You do want to leave some loose felt here on the end because we're going to use that to attach the cap to this. So you don't want it to be packed too tightly because you want to be able to stick this together. And same for this side. It's going to be a little bit tighter, but not too tight because we're going to need to stick it to this just enough so that it stays in place when we put it in the jar. So mostly I'm going to concentrate on getting this packed down around the sides. So once you've got this about the size that you want it, it's time to finish it off. So I've still got some loose felt here. I'm just going to turn this upside down and start attaching it. And you just poke the felt, go through the cream to the red. Make sure to go all the way around. So once you've got this attached, you're going to start working on the spots. So I've already done a few, but I'm going to do one more just so you can see how it works. So just take a little piece of the cream felt, find a spot, and you'll just poke it a few times to make sure it stays. Then you can see all these loose threads, so you just want to work to bring them in. And just attach as you go. So eventually you end up with a little spot. So just add as many of those as you want all over. And then you're going to work on your next mushroom. For now, what I'm going to do is show you how to make this part. So the moss, that's pretty easy. You're just going to take a couple of pieces of green, and I mixed mine. So you don't need too much. So just kind of put some of the green together. I'm going to add a little bit more of this kind of olive green. Okay. So for this, you're just going to work at it. You want it to come together, but you don't want it to be tight like these pieces here. So you're basically just bringing the felt in so that it's about the size of the bottom of the jar. And you can flip it over and see how it looks. So you want it to be kind of fluffy. And as you work, if you're not sure if it's going to fit or how it's going to look, you can always pull this up and see how it looks in your jar. So depending on how you want it to look, you can keep working at it. I'm going to pull it out and keep working on it a bit. So I kind of like how the back is sticking up a little bit. So I may keep it pretty close to this size. Okay, once you've got it where you want it, you'll attach your mushroom. So just find a spot and start working on attaching it. So this is similar to what we did when we attached the cap to the stalk. So we're just poking around the base. So you just want to make sure it's on there well enough so that when we drop it into the jar, it's going to stay in place. So I'm gonna just take one of these mushrooms from my other jar and attach it. So this one's a little bit smaller. You just want to make sure that it's in place. Okay, so we've got our mushrooms attached. Now we're just going to carefully drop it into the jar. Okay, and I'm going to use the flat end of this to poke this through. And then again, using the flat end, just kind of make sure all the felt is in there. Okay, so there are our mushrooms. Now this one is kind of tall, so I think when I put the cork on, it's going to smush down a little bit, but that's okay because the moss is kind of springy, so. then there's our jar. So if you get it in here and you're not liking how it looks, you can always pull it out. And if the mushrooms come off, you can reattach it fairly easily, so that's not a big deal. You could also just leave it as is if you want to sit it like this on your desk or attach it to a wood slice. That would be another cute way to display it. So that's it for this craft. I hope you enjoyed it. If you have any questions, you can always email me, and I will see you next month.